Alrighty, this is Unit 8B, Day 2. We're still using trigonometry, and today we're going to use trigonometry to find missing sides and angles. When you are using a scientific calculator, specifically the ones that we use in class, which is the TI-84, but any scientific calculator for that matter, make sure the calculator is in degree mode. For our 84s, you need to push mode and make sure degree is highlighted. But for a normal scientific calculator that you can buy for like $10, make sure you read the manual on how you change it to degrees. But I'm sure there should be some kind of indication that it is in degrees. It should be DEG on the screen somehow, some way. But anyways, so if I look at this triangle on this first example, my reference angle is 32 degrees. So let's highlight my reference angle. It's right here in this corner. Based on this reference angle, let's label the sides. Again, always start with the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So this is our hypotenuse. And then across from the reference angle is labeled as x. This is opposite. So based on this information, I have opposite and hypotenuse labeled. So that means I would use the sine function, because at the top of the screen it tells you, but even if it didn't tell you, you should remember that sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So let's write our ratio. So it's sine of your reference angle. So our reference angle is 32 degrees, is equal to opposite, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 25. Now, to solve for x, the easiest thing to do is to put sine 32 degrees all over 1. And since it's over 1, that means we're going to cross multiply, right? Because it looks like a proportion. So 1 times x is going to give me x. Bring down my equal sign, and then it's 25 times sine of 32 degrees. Now, in this step, you have several options. But if you have a TI-84, I would put, or any TI graphing calculator, I would put this expression, 25 times sine of 32 degrees, in the calculator all in one step. If you don't have a TI calculator, like if you're just using a calculator on your computer, then you're going to have to find the sine of 32 first and then multiply that by 25. So I'll show you both options. First option I'll show you is find sine of 32. So even though I have my graphing calculator, I could even use my computer's calculator and do the same thing. So let's check to make sure I'm in degree mode. So I go to mode. Right now I'm on radians. So I need to jump down and highlight degree and hit enter. And now degree is ready to go. So hit second and quit, and back to our home screen. So now I would type sine 32, close my parentheses, hit enter, and I would get approximately 0.5299. Rounding to 4 places is really good when it comes to trig. So 0.5299. So it's 25 times 0.5299. And now I'm going to take that answer and multiply it with 25. So now times 25. And that gives me about 13.25 if I'm rounding to the hundredths. So x is about 13.25. Now again, with a graphing calculator, you can do all of that in one step. So I'll demonstrate that as well. Put the 25 out in front, open your parentheses, hit sign, 32. Since you opened up two parentheses, that means close two parentheses, and then hit enter, and you get the same thing. So I'd rather do it all in one step if I were you. Less room for mistakes, especially rounding mistakes that some of y'all make. But again, if you don't have a graphing calculator, that doesn't mean you can't do your homework. The calculator that comes with every computer or every smartphone can still do trigonometry. C, make sure it's in degrees. And then on this one, I believe you have to type, can you do sine first? No, clear. You have to do 32 and then hit sine. And see, there it goes, 0.5299. That's the only difference. You have to do it step by step. So no excuses not having a calculator. If you have a cell phone or a computer, you have a calculator. All right, let me get off my soapbox. Next example. So in this triangle, my reference angle is 22. It's located right here. So let's label what we have. Again, I always start with my hypotenuse, if that is labeled, and in this case it is. And then I don't have across from the reference angle. I have right next to the reference angle, and we know next to means adjacent. So since I have adjacent and the hypotenuse labeled, that means I have to use cosine. So let's set up the ratio. The cosine of what angle? 22. You have to put the 22 after the word cosine, or whatever the angle is, equals, now write the ratio. The ratio says put adjacent first, so that's 13 over the hypotenuse, which is x. So now, again, to do this, you're going to put the whole entire left side over 1. And now cross multiply. So that's 13 equals x times cosine of 22. So since it's x times cosine of 22, to get x by itself, I would have to divide both sides by cosine 22. That way it'll be x all alone, but on the left, I now have 13 divided by cosine 22. So again, you can do it in 2 steps or 1. It depends on you and what resources you have. But I'm going to do it in 1 step. So alpha y equals produces our fraction. So put 13 at the top, drop down, type cosine 22, and close your parentheses. So you get approximately 14.02. All right, on this example, our reference angle is 48 degrees. Right here in this corner. We're not given the hypotenuse yet again. However, we are given the side across from it. So that means that's the opposite. And we're given the side right next to it. So that's your adjacent. So since I have opposite and I have adjacent, I would use tangent. So tangent of the reference angle, 48 degrees, is equal to opposite, which is x, over adjacent, which is 18.4. So now again, put this over 1 so I can cross multiply. So that's 1 times x, which is x, is equal to 18.4 times tan of 48. Notice I always put the regular number before the trig. That's a good habit to do. Less likely to make a mistake that way, trust me. So now grab my calculator, type it all in one step. So I would have 18.4 times tangent of 48, close parentheses, and hit enter. And I get 20.44 approximately. Please try these two on your own. Find x in both pictures. So far we've found missing angles. Now you're going to be introduced to inverse trigonometry. If you're looking for the angle, you're going to use the inverse trig function. On our TI-84, that means push second before typing the trig function. And I'll demonstrate that in just 1 second. But again, when you're looking for the angle, use inverse trig. So the first thing it wants us to do in this problem is to find the value of x. X represents our reference angle. So let's highlight it. So based on where x is located, this hypotenuse is labeled as 23. And then the adjacent side is labeled. So since I have adjacent and I have hypotenuse, what trig function or ratio can I write? I write cosine, correct. So I would write it as cosine of what angle? Our angle is x right now. Is equal to the ratio adjacent, which is 14, over hypotenuse, which is 23. Now, I'm solving for x like I was in the previous examples, but x is an angle. So the only way to remove cosine from that side is to use the inverse cosine. And you're going to apply the inverse cosine on both sides, again, because it's an equation. And you got to keep an equation balanced. So when you apply inverse cosine to the regular cosine, they cancel each other out, leaving x by itself on the left side of the equal sign. But now on the right side, you have cosine inverse. That's why that -1 power is there. Without the -1 power, it's just regular cosine, which is false. So you have to write the -1 at the top. So that's cosine inverse. And then you're going to put 14 over 23 in parentheses. Because this is how it's going to go in the calculator. So you might want to write it exactly how you want it to be entered so that you don't make a mistake. so now I can pick up my calculator and type this in and get my angle. So again, I hit second cosine in order to get the inverse, and I'll type 14 divided by 23. Or you can use alpha y equals, that doesn't matter. And it tells me my angle is about 52.5. And make sure you label appropriately because it's an angle and the units for an angle is degrees. So about 52.5 degrees. If it helps, put it on the picture. 52.5 degrees. Now, number 2 says, find the measure of angle BAC. So for number 2, you're looking for this angle right here. I just marked in green. I'm pretty sure you can handle that on your own now that you know the other 2 angles. So I'm going to leave that for you for yourself. And then the last thing it wants us to do is find the length of AB. To find the length of AB, you're going to use Pythagorean's theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Remember, you have your hypotenuse already. So that means you have C. Now that you know that information, go ahead and finish those 2 questions on this example. All right. And on this example, it wants us to find angle X again. So let's highlight it and then label the sides according to this reference angle. So from X's position, I have the side across from it, so that means I have the opposite. And then I have the side right next to it, so I have adjacent. So the only function that involves opposite and adjacent is tangent. So now I can write my ratio or my equation. So I would say the tangent of angle X is equal to opposite, which is 83, over adjacent, which is 52. And now I want X to be by itself. So the only way to do that is to apply the inverse to both sides. So that means X is going to equal tan inverse of 83 over 52. And now we grab our calculator. Again, we're going to hit second first, and then tan, and type 83 divided by 52. And we get approximately 57.9 degrees. For angles, it's okay to round to the tenths place. I probably wouldn't do hundredths. I just forgot what the angle was. I'm so sorry. 57.9. All right. And again, if you want to add it to the picture, you can. All right, then it wants us to determine the measure of angle VLU. So if I trace it, VLU is this angle right here that I've marked in blue. So please find that missing angle. And number 3, what is the perimeter and the area of this triangle? In order to find the perimeter, you need to find this missing side. That missing side is the hypotenuse. Again, to find the hypotenuse, you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse, and then find the perimeter. Now, the area might be a little tricky because you may not remember the formula for area. So I'll help you with that, even though it should be on your formula chart. The area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. Another way to look at it is base times height divided by 2. The base for this triangle is already labeled for us. The base is VU, and the height is LV, and then divide by 2. So in other words, it's 52 times 83, and then all that divided by 2. So go ahead and finish finding the area for this triangle. And this concludes your notes for today's lesson. There are a few other practice questions that I would like for you to try on your own and work them out and see what you get, and let me know how you do.